What is up, everybody? Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up some San Juan worms. This is basically a pattern that's supposed to imitate a annelid in the river or in the lake. There's hundreds of these little annelids or worm-like creatures that we're going to be imitating here. I'm going to tie this in two different versions in this video. One will be weighted and one will be unweighted. Because I fish both. Generally in the rivers I fish a weighted version, and on the still water I fish an unweighted version. So we're going to start with a size 12. This is a stealth hook and a scud or a grub hook, and we're going to go ahead and just use some red thread because we're going to be tying this in a red colored worm. And I'm going to start my thread back here almost dead even with the barb, and we'll just cut out our tag end. And the reason I'm starting back here is we're going to tie in this ultra chenille. This is ultra fine. It comes in red, and I think it comes in a few different sizes, but this is not the micro, it's just the regular ultra chenille. And I think there's one larger size, but I generally tie it in these. So just go ahead and snip off about a 2-inch piece. We can always trim the ends later. And I'm just going to use some pinch wraps here, wrapping up and over, bringing the thread up and in between my fingers on the first 2 wraps, and then about 4 wraps each, and then I'll just tie my thread underneath the on the shank of the hook and work my way up to the eye with touching wraps just to cover it all up. And we're going to basically lay this chenille down right on top of that, and I will go ahead and do the same thing with a pinch wrap, making sure to come and use my fingers as the wrapping point, and then we will lift it up and do about 3 or 4 wraps. For durability I'll do another wrap on top, but then we will go ahead and whip finish, and then you just need about a 3-turn whip finish. If you're not going to use any sort of head cement or UV resin, then do a double whip finish, but I'm going to use that, so a single 3-turn whip finish is enough. And then we want to adjust it. Basically, I take the overall length and I basically do that plus a little bit on each end. That way that's just how I've always done it. So you're basically 3 to 3.5 times the overall shank of the hook. And then make sure you just burn your ends, just light them, and then dab them with your fingers. Gives a nice taper, also helps with durability. And then I'll just take a really thin UV resin, put a dab on my thread dams where I tied that in. You don't need to cover the whole shank, just something to hold those two in place. And we'll go ahead and cure it. Make sure not to use too much, otherwise you mat down the chenille and make it more like a hard plastic. Then it wouldn't be a San Juan worm. It would be some sort of Rapala worm. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But you can see how quick it is. A couple minutes to tie these. I've got another stealth hook here. This is size 12, and I put a tungsten bead on it to fit the hook. We're going to start at the same place, and you can see sometimes it's a little slippery. If you want, you can wax that shank a little bit to get a little bit better grip. But go ahead and get our same material, cut out about a 2 or 3 inch. You can measure these out to be precise, but I end up wasting a 1/4 of an inch on each time I do one. So being a little bit more precise would help save a little bit of material. But go ahead and do those pinch wraps with about 3 wraps over the shank. And if it doesn't line up, you can always just loosen it up, place it right back on top. And that's how I tie in my squirmy wormies, as I've shown in another video. But same process, but this time I'm going to stop midway up the point. I'll bring the chenille over. I'll do 1 or 2 wraps. Careful not to let it walk on you. You want to let it stay on the top of the shank. I'll butt the bead up against it. I'll bring my thread up and under, and go ahead and wrap with a couple wraps in front of that bead as I'm securing it back. And then I'll do another wrap backwards, trying to get that thread on the other side of that bead, and then back again. Notice how every time I cross that bead I do 1 or 2 wraps in front, and then we'll just pull the chenille up and over. And I do these a little bit tight here just to kind of create a little hump there and bring it down, and then we'll advance to the eye. And the last step is to basically tie that chenille down right behind the eye as we did before with a couple wraps. And this is pretty much it. So this is now a weighted version of the San Juan worm. I've seen these tied up, both the unweighted and weighted, in a bunch of different variations. This is just how I do it. This pattern originated, they assume, on the San Juan River. probably in the 70s, and so I don't think there's anybody that's given the credit for this. But if you know more than I do, go ahead and leave me a message in the comments. I'd love to give credit where due. So same process, super quick tie. I'm just burn the ends, and I'm securing it now with a little bit of UV resin. You can really go too much, like kind of there. That's a borderline too much for me, but it kind of got away from me, and that's it. Just tie them on, fish them. San Juan, the chenille comes in a bunch of different colors, but I usually fish them in like the natural brown, pink, and this red. And you can fill a box pretty quick. So tie some up. They catch fish. They're known to catch fish. So hopefully they pierce some lips for you. Thanks for watching.